My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 39 years old, and I work as a financial consultant in Seattle, Washington. For 15 years, I was married to Lauren Thompson, daughter of Walter Thompson, a respected businessman who had built his empire from the ground up in the Pacific Northwest. Our marriage was solid, or so I thought. I lived quietly, focused on my work, helping Lauren build her image as a successful corporate executive while I handled what really mattered behind the scenes, the family finances, the investments, and eventually the care of her father. When Walter got sick, everything changed. Cancer doesn't care about your plans or your calendar. For 3 years, I dedicated myself completely to taking care of him. Doctor appointments at Swedish Medical Center, physical therapy sessions, medication schedules, meal preparations. I handled it all while Lauren focused on her career and the family business. Her brother Michael was even less present. They treated their father like an obligation, a burden they couldn't wait to be free from. I saw it in their eyes during the rare visits, heard it in their impatient voices when Walter needed help with something simple. Walter noticed too. He wasn't a fool. Despite the illness eating away at his body, his mind remained sharp until the very end. We had long conversations during those quiet afternoons when the pain medication allowed him some peace. He told me stories about building his company in the 80s, about the people who had tried to cheat him, about loyalty and betrayal. "Daniel," he said once, looking at me with those clear blue eyes, "in this world, you find out who people really are when money enters the picture." I thought I understood what he meant. I was wrong. I had no idea how right he was or how soon I would learn that lesson. Walter passed away in March 2024. The funeral was elegant, held at a historic chapel in Capitol Hill, attended by business partners, employees, and the social circle that Thompsons had cultivated over decades. Lauren played the role of grieving daughter perfectly. Black Armani dress, understated makeup, controlled tears at just the right moments. I stood beside her, supporting her, believing we were going through this together as a couple should. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. The will reading happened a week later at the law office of Harrison & Associates downtown. Walter had left an estate worth approximately $10 million. Commercial properties in Seattle and Bellevue, a diversified stock portfolio including shares in Microsoft and Amazon, mutual funds, and his stake in the family manufacturing company. Lauren inherited the lion's share. Michael got a smaller portion and a paid position in the company. There were charitable donations specified, contributions to Seattle Children's Hospital and the University of Washington. And then the attorney, Marianne Collins, mentioned something that didn't register with Lauren or Michael at the time. Certain provisions in the family trust, governance clauses, administrative controls requiring dual signatures for transactions exceeding $25,000. My name was listed as one of the authorized co-signatories. These safeguards were Walter's way of protecting the assets from impulsive or reckless management. I caught Marianne's eye across the mahogany conference table. She gave me the slightest nod. She knew. Walter had planned this carefully. Lauren didn't react during the meeting. She smiled, thanked everyone, and we drove home in her Mercedes GLE SUV in silence. I thought she was processing her grief, the weight of new responsibilities. I was trying to be supportive, to give her space. I was completely unprepared for what came next. 3 days after the will reading, Lauren came home early from work. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she walked in with a face I didn't recognize. Cold, distant, almost hostile. "We need to talk," she said, not even taking off her coat. "Sure," I replied, turning off the stove. "What's going on?" "I've been thinking about my future," she said, leaning against the marble countertop. "About what I want. And I've realized that you don't fit into that picture anymore." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "What are you talking about?" "Daniel, let's be honest. You've spent the last 3 years playing nurse to my father. You've let your career stagnate. You've become comfortable living in the shadow of my family's success. She crossed her arms. I need to move forward, alone. Lauren, I took care of your father because he needed help, because it was the right thing to do, because you and Michael wouldn't. That was your choice, she said flatly. And now I'm making mine. I want you to leave. As soon as possible. This is my house now, part of my inheritance. You need to find somewhere else to live. I stood there staring at the woman I had spent 15 years with, and realized I was looking at a stranger. The grief, the stress, the money, it had all stripped away whatever love had existed between us. When? I asked quietly. This weekend would be good, she replied. I'll have my attorney send you the separation paperwork. She turned and walked upstairs, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen of a home that was no longer mine. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. By Saturday morning, I had loaded my car with clothes, personal documents, and a few belongings that actually mattered to me. Family photos, books, my laptop, the watch Walter had given me on my birthday 2 years earlier. Lauren was out, probably at brunch with friends, celebrating her newfound freedom. I left my key on the kitchen counter and drove to a modest apartment I had rented in Fremont, a neighborhood across town where I could think clearly without the weight of that house pressing down on me. The apartment was small but honest. As I unpacked, the trust provisions kept echoing in my mind. Walter had seen something coming, but something didn't sit right. Walter had been too careful, too strategic in everything he did. The trust provisions Marianne had mentioned during the will reading kept echoing in my mind. Dual signatures, governance clauses, administrative controls. Walter had seen something coming, and he had prepared for it. On Monday morning, I called Marianne Collins. She answered on the second ring. Daniel, she said warmly, I was expecting your call. I need to understand the trust structure, I told her. Lauren has made it clear I'm no longer part of her life. But Walter put my name on those documents for a reason. He did, Marianne confirmed. And before he passed, he told me explicitly that you were the only person in his family who had shown true loyalty. He wanted safeguards in place to prevent his estate from being mismanaged or squandered. That's why you're a co-signatory on all major transactions. What exactly does that mean? It means Lauren cannot sell property, liquidate investments, or transfer funds exceeding $25,000 without your written authorization. Walter designed the trust to protect his life's work from impulsive decisions. He suspected that once he was gone, Lauren and Michael might prioritize personal gain over long-term stability. I sat back in my chair, processing this information. So she needs my signature. On anything significant, yes. And Daniel, there's something else. As a co-signatory, you have the legal right to request audits, review all transactions, and petition the court if you believe the trust is being mismanaged. You think that's going to happen? I thanked her and hung up. For the first time since Lauren had kicked me out, I felt something other than shock and hurt. I felt clarity. Walter had given me a legal mechanism to ensure his life's work wouldn't be destroyed by greed or carelessness. I wasn't going to waste it. I decided to wait. Patience is an underrated weapon. Let her feel free to do whatever she wanted. 2 weeks passed. Then Marianne called me on a Thursday afternoon. Daniel, we have a problem, she said, her tone sharp. I've been monitoring the trust account as required by my position as Walter's estate attorney. Lauren has made several transactions without your authorization. What kind of transactions? She sold $80,000 worth of Amazon stock last week. She also withdrew $50,000 in cash from one of the investment accounts and made a wire transfer of $35,000 to a personal account in her name only. All of this violates the trust agreement. I felt my pulse quicken. She didn't contact me for signatures. No. She forged your authorization on the stock sale and bypassed the co-signature requirement on the withdrawals by claiming emergency administrative expenses. But there's a paper trail, Daniel. Every transaction is documented, and I have copies of everything. What do? We file a petition with the King County Superior Court requesting an immediate audit and a temporary freeze on all trust assets. We show the judge that Lauren has violated the terms of the trust and we ask for her removal as administrator, pending a full investigation. Will it work? If the evidence is solid, yes. And the evidence is very solid. Walter structured this trust specifically to prevent this kind of behavior. The court takes fiduciary duty seriously, especially when there's documented proof of violations. Then let's do it, I said. File the petition. Marianne moved fast. Within 3 days, she had prepared all the documentation. Copies of the trust agreement, transaction records showing the unauthorized sales and withdrawals, bank statements, and a detailed timeline of Lauren's actions since Walter's death. We filed the petition on Monday morning, and by Tuesday afternoon we had a hearing scheduled for the following week. I didn't tell Lauren. I didn't warn her or give her a chance to cover her tracks. That wasn't mercy. It was strategy. The more comfortable she felt, the more mistakes she would make. The hearing took place on a rainy morning in early April 2024. The courtroom was on the 8th floor of the King County Courthouse, a place I had never been before. Marianne sat beside me at the petitioner's table, calm and confident. Lauren arrived with her attorney, a sharp-looking man in an expensive suit named Gregory Vaughn. She looked surprised to see me, then irritated. "What is this about?" she asked Vaughn loudly enough for me to hear. "Apparently your husband has issues with your management of the estate," he replied, glancing at the paperwork. Judge Patricia Brennan entered, and we all stood. She was in her mid-50s with short gray hair and a no-nonsense expression. She reviewed the petition silently for several minutes, then looked up. "Ms. Collins, you're alleging that Mrs. Thompson has violated the terms of her father's trust by making unauthorized transactions. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Marianne replied. "We have documented evidence of multiple violations, including the sale of securities and cash withdrawals exceeding the limits set in the trust agreement, all without the required co-signature from Mr. Hayes." Judge Brennan turned to Lauren's attorney. "Mr. Vaughn, how does your client respond?" Vaughn stood. "Your Honor, Mrs. Thompson was acting in good faith to manage the estate efficiently. She was unaware that these particular transactions required additional authorization. This is a simple administrative misunderstanding, not a willful violation." "Unaware?" Judge Brennan raised an eyebrow. The trust agreement was read aloud during the will reading, and Mrs. Thompson signed acknowledgement of its terms. That's documented here in the file. Vaughn hesitated. "Your Honor, my client was grieving. She may not have fully processed all the details at that time. Grief doesn't excuse fiduciary negligence, Mr. Vaughn. Ms. Collins, do you have the transaction records?" Marianne handed a thick folder to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Judge Brennan reviewed the documents carefully, her expression growing more severe with each page. 80,000 in stock sales, 50,000 in cash withdrawals, 35,000 transferred to a personal account. She looked at Lauren. "Mrs. Thompson, can you explain the purpose of these transactions?" Lauren stood, visibly uncomfortable. "I was consolidating assets, Your Honor, making the estate easier to manage." "By transferring funds into your personal account?" "It was temporary. I intended to reinvest." "You intended to circumvent the oversight your father put in place," Judge Brennan interrupted. "Mr. Hayes, you were named as a co-signatory specifically to prevent this kind of unilateral decision-making. Were you contacted about any of these transactions?" I stood. "No, Your Honor, I wasn't." The judge closed the folder. "I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all trust accounts pending a full forensic audit. Mrs. Thompson, you are temporarily suspended from administrative duties. Mr. Hayes, you will serve as interim administrator until this matter is resolved. We'll reconvene in 30 days to review the audit findings. Court is adjourned." The gavel came down. Lauren's face went pale. Vaughn tried to object, but Judge Brennan was already leaving the courtroom. Marianne gathered her papers calmly, professionally. I sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. Lauren turned to me, fury in her eyes. "You planned this," she hissed. "No," I replied quietly. "Your father planned this. I'm just honoring his wishes." She stormed out with Vaughn trailing behind her. Marianne touched my shoulder. Well done, Daniel. Phase 1 is complete. What's Phase 2? We wait for the audit results, and we let the facts do the rest. The forensic audit began immediately. Judge Brennan appointed a specialist firm, Cascade Financial Auditors, to examine every transaction made since Walter's death. They had access to all bank records, investment accounts, credit card statements, and email correspondence related to the trust. It was thorough, methodical, and completely beyond Lauren's control. I moved into my new role as interim administrator carefully. Mary Ann guided me through the legal requirements, the reporting obligations, the fiduciary responsibilities. I reviewed every asset in the trust. 3 commercial properties in Seattle valued at approximately $4 million. The stock portfolio worth another $3 million. Mutual funds, bonds, and Walter's 20% stake in Thompson Manufacturing, the company he had built over 4 decades. The more I looked, the more I understood why Walter had been concerned. The company was solid, profitable, but it required careful oversight. The real estate holdings needed maintenance and proper management. The investment portfolio needed rebalancing. These weren't assets you could treat carelessly. They represented a lifetime of work, of strategic decisions, of sacrifice. Lauren had treated them like a personal checking account. I focused on stabilizing what I could. I met with property managers, reviewed lease agreements, and consulted with financial advisors. People noticed. The company's CFO told me, "Walter built this company to last generations. It deserves better." "Daniel, I have to say, it's good to see someone taking this seriously," he said. After Walter passed, Lauren came to a couple of meetings, but she was more interested in talking about liquidating assets than understanding the business. Walter built this company to last generations. Deserves better than that. That's exactly what I intend to ensure, I told him. 3 weeks into the audit, Mary Ann called me with an update. "The auditors found more than we initially thought," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. Lauren didn't just make unauthorized withdrawals. She attempted to sell one of the Seattle properties, the office building on 5th Avenue, for $2 million. The buyer backed out when they discovered the title was encumbered by trust restrictions, but the attempt was documented. She also transferred $75,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands through a wire service. The auditors traced it through 3 intermediary accounts. I felt cold. She was trying to hide money. Exactly. And there's more. She charged over $60,000 in personal expenses to trust credit cards over the past month. Designer clothes, jewelry, a trip to Maui, spa treatments, restaurant bills. None of it was for estate management. It was pure personal consumption. The auditors estimate Lauren has misappropriated or attempted to misappropriate over $1.8 million since Walter's death. That includes the unauthorized stock sales, the cash withdrawals, the offshore transfer, the personal expenses, and the attempted property sale. $1.8 million in less than 2 months. I thought about Walter, about the years he had spent building that wealth through hard work and discipline, and I felt a quiet rage settle into my chest. Not the hot, explosive kind, the cold, focused kind that demands justice. "What happens now?" I asked. "The audit report goes to Judge Brennan. We'll have another hearing. Based on these findings, I'll be requesting Lauren's permanent removal as trustee, a civil judgment for the misappropriated funds, and full administrative control transferred to you. We'll also recommend the court consider referring this to the prosecutor's office for potential criminal charges. Embezzlement, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. These aren't minor violations, Daniel. Lauren systematically looted her father's estate for personal gain while serving as its administrator. That's a crime under Washington state law." The hearing was scheduled for early May 2024. This time, the courtroom was more crowded. Word had spread through Seattle's business community about the Thompson estate case. Several reporters sat in the gallery. Michael Thompson showed up looking uncomfortable and nervous. He had been smart enough to stay out of the mess Lauren had created, but the family name was still attached to the scandal. Judge Brennan entered, and we all stood. She had the audit report in front of her, a document that had grown to over 200 pages of detailed findings, transaction analyses, and documented violations. "I've reviewed the forensic audit conducted by Cascade Financial Auditors," she began, her voice grave. "The findings are deeply troubling. Mrs. Thompson, your attorney has been provided with a copy of this report. Do you have a response to these allegations?" Lauren stood, looking thinner and more tired than before. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges that certain transactions were made without proper authorization," Vaughn said carefully. "However, she maintains that there was no criminal intent. These were errors in judgment during a difficult time of grief and transition. Mrs. Thompson is willing to work with the court to rectify any errors in judgment." Judge Brennan's voice cut through the courtroom. "Mr. Vaughn, your client attempted to sell a $2 million property without authorization. She transferred $75,000 to an offshore account. She charged $60,000 in personal luxury expenses to estate funds. These are not errors. These are deliberate acts of financial misconduct." She turned to Lauren directly. "Mrs. Thompson, your father entrusted you with the stewardship of his life's work. He put safeguards in place because he understood the temptations that come with sudden wealth and control. You violated every single one of those safeguards. You treated his estate as your personal piggy bank, while the ink was barely dry on his death certificate." Judge Brennan continued. "Based on the findings in this audit, I am issuing the following orders. First, Mrs. Thompson is permanently removed as administrator of the Walter Thompson Family Trust, effective immediately. Second, Mr. Daniel Hayes is appointed as permanent administrator with full authority to manage all trust assets. Third, Mrs. Thompson is ordered to repay $1.8 million to the trust within 90 days, with interest. Fourth, given the agreement to full restitution and Mrs. Thompson's commitment to never serve in a fiduciary capacity again, I am declining to recommend criminal charges at this time, though the option remains if restitution is not completed." The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled notes. Lauren stood frozen. "Mrs. Thompson, you will have no further access to trust funds or assets," Judge Brennan concluded. "Any attempt to interfere with Mr. Hayes' administration of the estate will result in contempt charges. This court is adjourned." "Yes," Vaughn replied quietly. "She can, and she did." Lauren looked at me across the courtroom. For a moment I saw fear in her eyes. She had lost everything. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply looked at her, nodded once, and walked out of the courtroom with Marianne. "Relieved," I said honestly. "Walter trusted me to protect what he built. I did that. You did more than that, Daniel. You proved that integrity matters more than ambition, and you did it all within the law, using the tools he gave you." Weeks passed. The consequences for Lauren multiplied. The story hit the news. Her position was terminated. She had to liquidate personal assets to begin paying back the trust. Michael came to see me one afternoon at my office in downtown Seattle. He looked embarrassed, ashamed. "Daniel, I need to apologize," he said. "I should have been more involved. I should have stood up for you when Lauren kicked you out. I was a coward." "You were neutral," I replied. "That's different." "Not by much. My father saw something in you that he didn't see in his own children. That's hard to admit, but it's true. You honored him when we didn't." That summer, I restructured the trust completely and created the Walter Thompson Elder Care Fund, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting family caregivers and protecting elderly people from financial exploitation. The fund launched in September 2024 with $500,000. We began helping families across Washington state. The first grant went to a woman whose mother had been defrauded. The second went to a man caring for his father with Alzheimer's. Every time I reviewed an application, I thought about Walter. The fund was my way of making sure his life meant something beyond money. By late autumn 2024, my life had found a new rhythm. I lived simply in Fremont, focused on peace and purpose. Lauren, meanwhile, was struggling. She had moved to a small condo in Belltown and took a marketing coordinator position, earning around $60,000 a year. Her reputation was destroyed. She made one final attempt to contact me in November 2024. She looked older, worn down. "I want to apologize," she said. "I was wrong about everything. I understand now what my father saw in you." I considered walking away, but something in her voice stopped me. Defeat, maybe, or genuine remorse. I couldn't tell which. "What do you want, Lauren?" "I want to apologize," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "I was wrong about everything. I treated you terribly. I treated my father's memory terribly. I let greed and ambition destroy everything that mattered." "You did," I agreed. "You made choices, Lauren, bad ones. Your father gave you an incredible gift, and you treated it like it was owed to you." I didn't respond immediately. There was a time when an apology might have mattered, but that time had passed. "I hope you rebuild your life, Lauren," I said finally. "But we're done." She turned and walked away. I watched her go, feeling nothing but distant sadness. By the end of 2024, the trust was stronger than ever. The portfolio had grown by 12%. Thompson Manufacturing had its best fiscal year in over a decade. The Elder Care Fund had helped 43 families. I received a letter from Judge Brennan praising my stewardship of the Thompson estate. I framed it as a reminder that doing the right thing matters. I thought about Walter often. He had built something meaningful, and he had trusted the right person to protect it. One cold afternoon in early January 2025, I visited his grave at Lakeview Cemetery. The wind off Puget Sound cut through my jacket. Walter's headstone was simple. He built with purpose. I stood there, staring at the woman I had spent 15 years with, and realized I was looking at a stranger. The grief, the stress, the money, it had all stripped away whatever love had existed between us. "I kept my word, Walter," I said quietly. "Your legacy is secure. The company is thriving. The fund is helping people, and the vultures didn't win." The wind rustled through the bare branches. Ravens called out. Dead leaves swirled around the headstone. I turned and walked back to my car, feeling lighter than I had in years. My life now is simple but full. I wake up early, work with clients who appreciate my expertise, attend board meetings where my voice matters, and oversee a foundation that makes a real difference. People sometimes ask me if I regret how things turned out with Lauren, if I wish I had fought for the marriage, tried to work through the issues, found a different path. The answer is no. What Lauren did revealed who she truly was, and what I did in response revealed who I am. I chose integrity over bitterness, strategy over emotion, and justice over revenge. That's a choice I can live with. The Thompson estate is worth over $12 million now, growing steadily under careful management. When the time comes, those assets will fund scholarships, support caregivers, and sustain the company Walter built. His name will be remembered not for the scandal his daughter created, but for the positive impact his wealth continues to make. As for me, I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable. I'm not famous, but I'm respected. I'm not bitter, but I'm wiser. And every day I wake up knowing that when someone placed their trust in me during their most vulnerable moments, I honored it. That's worth more than any inheritance could ever be. Lauren tried to erase me from her life the moment she inherited wealth and power. She thought I was expendable, forgettable, irrelevant. But in the end, she was the one who disappeared from the story of her own family. The Thompson name endures, not because of her, but despite her. And the man she dismissed as weak and dependent became the guardian of her father's legacy. I didn't plan that outcome. I didn't scheme for revenge or plot her downfall. I simply used the tools Walter gave me, followed the law, and let consequences unfold naturally. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, acting honorably, and trusting that truth and time will do the work for you. Walter understood that. And now, so do I. If you enjoyed this story, like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.